Okay, it looks like we live.
All right.
We live. Okay. All right, brothers. So let's try this out. This is the Sigma Google Hangout, and we're dubbing this I am my brother's keeper edition. And as everybody knows, we have been holding the Northern California State meeting over the past few weeks, and we wanted to expand our conversation beyond just the brotherhood and get to some of the action that folks have been asking us about. So I put together a panel, and for those who are watching the Google Hangout, you can ask questions in the Q&A section. We'll get to that, but you're gonna like this discussion. Basically, we've been experiencing a lot of, or we've been witnessing a lot of things over the past, I would say, a few years with Trayvon Martin, with Michael Brown, with police brutality, and um, instead of just protesting or instead of just complaining about the problems, we as Sigmas can do a lot more, and we can build on the momentum that's already been created. So that's why this panel is so important. What I have is a few brothers from different areas. Let me start by introducing Brother Kelvin Tolbert. He is from the LA area, UCLA, New Delta grad, and he's a business owner. Kelvin, if you could just give a shout out to everybody.
Hello, say that again, I couldn't hear.
I was just saying, give a shout out to everybody.
Hey, brothers, how's it going? This is Kelvin Tolbert, member of Phi Beta Sigma chapter right now, down here in Southern California. Hope everybody's having a good evening.
Cool. And everybody heard that, right?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Next, I'm going to introduce Brother Ethel Wilson, and he is a police officer here in the Bay Area. Brother Wilson, just briefly introduce yourself.
My name is Ethel Wilson. I'm with Alpha Nu Sigma. I work for the Berkeley Police Department. Been on about 13 years. My current assignment is school resource officer at Berkeley High School.
Awesome. And next, we have Brother Omari Brandt. He is in technology in Silicon Valley. Brother Brandt, could you just give a brief introduction of yourself?
Sure thing. Omari Brandt. I'm currently a member of Alpha Nu Sigma chapter here in Oakland, California. See, I was a 99 initiate through Gamma Beta Sigma chapter back in Greensboro, North Carolina. Currently work at Walmart.com doing user experience, and I've been doing that for, wow, probably about a good 12 years now.
Cool, cool. So what I want to do real quick is I'm going to share my screen. Let me see this. Okay, give me a sec. All right, you should be able to see my screen now, hopefully.
Wow.
Okay. All right. I don't know if it looks weird, but here's what I wanted to show you guys, because these are some things that have been on my mind. Since the Michael Brown incident, we know that sparked, I think, a nationwide movement to really take a look at what's happening with black communities and police relations. We saw what happened with that case, and really sad. And I know that us as an organization, we did a lot to respond to the issue. But I know that really caught my eye, especially after witnessing what happened with the shooting death of Trayvon Martin and in the case, and how nobody was prosecuted or put into jail. After Michael Brown, we saw a movement spark up over the internet, and I think that's still alive and well. That's called Black Lives Matter, and that was actually started here in California. I didn't know that, but I know it's just caught a lot of attention, and because of the internet, it's gained a lot of momentum. And then, being a grad from UC Berkeley, I remember somebody hitting me up and showing me this photo of they were basically some cardboard cutouts hanging from one of the main entrances at Cal, and I was like, man, I can't believe this is happening again. I don't know exactly what the meaning of that was, but I remember it sparked a lot of protests. And I remember some brothers were asking me, they were like, well, you know, what should we do? We need to do something. We can't just sit back and just, you know, let this stuff happen. And, you know, being this grad from Berkeley, I knew that, basically, you know, we protested all the time, and it actually kind of got played out because there was a protest about a lot of stuff, you know, and people get tired of protests. And so this is why we're having this discussion, because I think there's more that we can do than just basically talk about it and then protest. And then I saw something that kind of it was kind of interesting. It's this website that somebody started called Racists Getting Fired, and I guess a group of people, anonymous, started actually calling people out, and people started losing their jobs because they were basically like, you know, saying racist stuff online, and people were getting tired of it, you know. And this kind of, I think this is the age that we're in, you know. Instead of just sitting back, people are taking action. So I'm wondering, and brothers, you can take 5 minutes or so just to say your thoughts, talk about what you do. I don't know. I mean, what can we do as Sigmas to maybe respond to this, to maybe get involved, and to use, I would say, business, technology, and police to, I think, either take a collective action or deal with all this stuff that we're dealing with now. So I'm gonna let me see if I can make this work again. Let me stop the screen sharing. And okay, now I'm back. Okay, so I don't know. Somebody can just hop in, and then we'll take it like a round robin.
Well, you know, if I can jump in, you know, honestly, I feel like very similar to what you just said, as far as protesting being, you know, more or less, you know, dead. I mean, I don't know if anybody that's online, you know, now saw the movie Selma, but the reason why protests were so effective, you know, back in the '60s, you know, back during the civil rights movement, was because you could always count on, you know, there was a limited number of, you know, channels. First of all, you know, it wasn't like, you know, today where we have the 24-hour news cycle and you got thousands of different channels with all types of different things going on. You know, you only had the major broadcast networks, so you could pretty much count on your protest being televised, and then plus you could always count on the reaction of, you know, of law enforcement or, you know, government and whatever in that particular locale, you know, to go to the extreme. So so it made for good television. Nowadays, that's not necessarily the case. So you know, you don't have the, you know, cases where you know, you're sicking dogs on people and water hoses and all that type of thing, and it's ready for, you know, all primed and ready for, you know, for broadcast. So you got to do things a little bit differently, you know, now today. You know, you know, if you're not necessarily your protest isn't necessary for, you know, for people to pay attention to it, frankly. There's all kinds of different other options, you know, for people, you know, to pay attention to. So you know, that's just my take on, you know, protest. But there are some things that are going on, you know, now with the advent of social media, different, you know, types of applications. You know, Periscope and Meerkat come to mind right now, you know, where you're able to, you know, basically anyone with an iPhone or Android device is, you know, is a cameraman, and you can broadcast live to, you know, to the world. So, you know, I think we just need to expand what we're, you know, what our, you know, our scope of what we, you know, what we include in our arsenal when it comes to things like protests and so on. It's not necessarily about, you know, grabbing a picket sign and walking, you know, walking a line anymore.
Ethel, could you shed some light on this, or could you give us some insight on, I don't know, being a police officer and your take on this? Or I don't know how much you can say, but your insight is valuable, I think.
Okay. Thanks for having me on this panel tonight. Definitely, there has been definitely. It is time, if we're right now with the movement, if we continue to make this a movement and not just die down on just the emotion of it, you know, of all. When I first came into law enforcement, so there was something that happened in law enforcement. It was something that when, especially in the state of California, where where they've given officers the ability to retire at an early age. Okay, so the retirement age was probably, I believe, 55 or 57. There was a law that passed, or things that they voted in, where officers could retire at 50. And so when this happens, this was around early 2000, between 2001 and 2002. When this happened, there was a mass exodus, right, out of law enforcement. So you had officers like, man, I'm 50, I'm gone, right? And these were, this is when I came on at Berkeley, where there were probably way more black officers than there are today, right? And so when that happened, let's just deal with California for right now. When that happened, you had that mass exodus throughout the whole state, okay? So now you had to fill these employment positions with people, right? And everybody know that, and I'm pretty sure everybody's had different types of contacts with law enforcement. It takes a special person to don this uniform, to wear this badge, right? And so I think when that opened up, you brought in people that you had to fill positions, that you had to deal with employment, and then you have to do backgrounds and all this stuff. And let's just face it, no matter how much research you do or how good your people are, you're going to have some bad apples fall through the cracks. Meaning you're going to have some people that don't have integrity, that don't understand the environments in which they work in, right? And so you had this come on, like I said, that's how I even got in, I believe, right? Because the crux of 350 people exiting, I was able to join and come in, and throughout the state, you had this rollover effect, which, and everyone knows, the other issue is that when I see different things that's happened in law enforcement throughout the nation, like let's just take Meserly, right? This is a young officer who had less than 2 years experience on. Also, they were given tasers, right, with minimal training. In my opinion, I can't speak for for other people in the jobs they do, but in law enforcement, firefighting, those type of civil service jobs, officers need to be mentored at least into their 5th year. You know what I'm saying? And if you go down, this is my opinion. Like this is my opinion of what I'm seeing. If you go around and you look at the things that's going on, and when I'm talking about where things where judgment can be lapsed or like questioned, usually that officer probably had less than 5 years experience on. The other thing, now when I look at the Mike Brown situation, Mike Brown situation in Ferguson, so you got that aspect, right? You got officers that's not being mentored, right? Also, it's a male-dominated profession, which that's the other component. I feel like that we need more women in law enforcement. Why? Because women change the dynamics of situations, right? It's like, for example, me and O, right? Me and O were on the street. Now, we both brothers. If I'm 6'2", O's, he's coming up. If I come up to him and say, hey, man, I need you to step back or do something, he might feel challenged, that he needs to challenge me. Compared to if a female officer told him that, he'd go, okay, sister, whatever, and you know what I mean? He'll back down. He won't feel it, and he needs to challenge that person or feel like a man is telling him something or something like that, right? So you have that aspect. So the other part that you see in law enforcement throughout, and this is now we can span it through the country, a lot of this is culture, right? So we learning now, right, from these federal reports that a lot of was going on in Ferguson had been going on for years, decades of brutality and misuse of the justice system, not just from law enforcement perspective, but also the judicial process, locking people out of courts and things of that nature. So that's a culture. When you have that, that's to me is worse than what you see when you have an inexperienced officer or just somebody who doesn't have an understanding of the community in which they serve. So that's kind of basically how I see it as in the suit I'm in. And one thing I do want to say, that being, like you said, Black Lives Matter started here in California, and especially in the Bay Area, right? Bay Areas are a lot more, there's a lot more, to me, in my opinion, a lot more accountability for their officers' behavior here compared to maybe even, I would even say down South LA, or when you leave the state, Arizona. We don't even have to go back east to Ferguson or DC or Texas or Bama. You could just go right to Arizona, right, where we hearing some different things. But that's a culture. That's what we're talking about. That part of the culture needs to be changed. So that's kind of where I see culture and inexperience and a lack of mentorship.
Cool, cool. Okay. Kelvin, you still with us?
I'm still here.
Okay. Can you give us, thank you, Ethel and Omari, so far. Kelvin, can you give us your perspective from a business standpoint or an entrepreneur standpoint?
Well, it's funny, everything it can come down to money. Okay, and us as a people, there's some admissions we have to make. And I'm not, saying these admissions saying that we're inferior to anybody, but some things are factual. Our educational level is lower than most people's. That is not because it's an innate thing. It's because it was organized that way in this country that we were raised in. From slavery on, there's always been a foot on us, and the foot was assistantly put on us by the federal government. So therefore, when we have problems with the law enforcement and things like that, a lot of it comes because of a lack of education, in my opinion. And that's one of the things that we need to do is become more and more educated. Now, I'm saying this to say that I think that the federal government has a lot to do with the situation that we're in because of our lack of education. Because it's not innate. It's amazing that us as black folks have survived and thrived the way that we have. But the thing is, there's a lot of brothers and sisters who's been left behind. And we got to bring them up. I believe that the federal government is responsible for that. So one of the things that I like to see happen is for us to get an educational fund together for all African American children. And that educational fund we should push by ourselves some kind of way. And then we need to shame the United States government into funding us a fund. I mean, they gave us civil rights, but they gave civil rights to everybody. Matter of fact, the biggest benefactor of civil rights was white women. But they weren't the slaves. We were. We were the one that was denied education. We were the ones that denied the ability to vote. We're the ones who have households where, when kids come to ask for help in mathematics, a lot of our parents can't even help us.
Okay. That sounds good.
So, with that said, I think one of the things we need to push for is to try to get the federal government to give us a part of reparations that's not for brothers to get Cadillacs, but to at least put an educational fund out there for all African American youth to be able to go to college if they qualify. And I think that will help us out a lot because right now the value on a black male is more to the prison system than it is to the education system. We need to change that.
Wow. Okay. Thank you very much. I see that we just we have another guest on our panel, Brother Kyle Davis Hammerquist. Can you hear us, Brother Kyle?
Yeah, I've been sitting on mute so as to not interrupt.
I know, and you wearing that red shirt, man. I'm playing with you. Hey, so introduce yourself, Kyle. And this. I'm glad you joined us because I know we've been having this conversation offline. Can you just share some of your thoughts on, I don't know, what we've been talking about on how we as Sigmas can respond to, what's been going on?
So first introductions, I'm Brother Kyle Hammerquist. I am from the undergrad chapter of Beta Tau, grad Kappa Eta Sigma in the Peninsula here in California. I joined Phi Beta Sigma in 2005 and have been an active member since. To speak to the topic at hand and as Martin presented it to me, we've been talking a lot about what action we can actually take as a band of brothers to have some impact. And I think that there are a lot of different fields that we as African Americans and African American men in particular just don't have the education and understanding to really allow ourselves to be a powerhouse. And I'd like to agree with everyone who has spoken so far, from having a presence in what I feel is law enforcement and the law itself, to education and business ownership. One of the things that I think African American people do not understand is that we have some of the strongest buying power in the U.S. as it stands. One of the greatest things about the Black Lives Matter protests that I saw in the course of the last 6 months or so is when we decided to unanimously almost not show out for Black Friday and cut sales nationwide by almost 40%, something like that. People's bottom line did not actually go into the black on Black Friday because Black Lives Matter decided not to spend money. The other half of it, however, was because we still wanted the gifts that we wanted to buy for the holiday season, we went out on Cyber Monday and spent all that same money right back. So everyone tipped their scales over 2 days later. If we had the opportunity to educate our people so that we knew the kind of impact and influence that we actually had on our nation, things like that could really have an impact, because we would start digging into people's pockets. You'd have to listen to us as a people. I think it's very important for us to look at how we can influence our nation without doing sit-ins and doing the protests of old, because it's not the same landscape, it's not the same time. I would actually encourage that we as a people look into focusing in, as Sigmas rather, focusing in on the programs that we have and really kind of poignantly directing them at our youth. Because if we had more officers in the police force and more lawyers and more judges per se, who's going to tell us that it's okay for Black people to die in the streets for smoking weed or something of a low offense? And if we have business owners that can control the market and we're funding our own communities by purchasing at our own Black-owned businesses, and we actually funnel our dollars, then corporations are going to listen to us because they want our money. And in today's world, the almighty dollar speaks even more so than before. So I believe that educating our youth, and not only our youth, but our mature men and women on money management and how to not only retain our money, but spend our money so that we can have serious impact in our world would make a huge difference in how Black community is seen and taken and addressed nationwide.
Oh, okay. All right. So I'm going to kind of play devil's advocate to everybody, because I think that one of the reasons why this panel is important is because, number one, the issue, as we've all talked about, the issues are not anything new, right? I mean, they've been around for a while. I think just these incidents have happened in recent years or recent months, so it's kind of made folks react again, and I think we have a short attention span in this country, and we kind of forget that, hey, this isn't the first time this has happened. So I want to play devil's advocate and just say, okay, these are all good ideas in terms of, you know, instead of protesting, kind of maybe coming up with a technology or, you know, becoming our own camera people to, I don't know, bring consciousness or awareness to the racism that we see. Or, as you said, Kelvin, coming up with our own education fund. Or like what you said, Ethel, becoming police officers. I mean, those are all good ideas, but I don't know, how do we make it work, I guess, because those are all great ideas, but they're just ideas, and it seems like sometimes we've been talking about them for years, but how do we actually make them work, especially as a frat? Anybody can jump in.
Well, the biggest issue, right? Like I've spoke on panels, right? And like not panels, but with youth programs, and here's the thing that disturbs me. It's like you talk to the kids, young kids, and they go, I said, so how many people know a police officer? Nobody could raise their hand. How many have known people or police officers in their families? And so that is what you guys are saying. I feel like could be far more reach quicker than you want to get people to don this badge, because it's just the stigma, which once used to be years ago a noble profession, and now it's not, And I think in some aspect we've lost sight of what our role is as police officers. Our job is to enforce the law. We're not the punishers of the law. The punishers is the judicial, the judges, the correction. Those are the ones that's holding you accountable. Our job is supposed to say, hey, sir, ma'am, you broke this law. You need to go see the judge about it. But somewhere it's turned into, in carrying out that message of enforcing the law, by meaning holding you accountable, to becoming punishers, and eventually taking people's lives. But the other thing is, I was at just last week. It was at a youth radio in Oakland. It was a panel that they had there, and it was one young man that was on the panel from Richmond. He said, I couldn't be a police officer, because that question was posed to the young people, like, how many of you want to go into it? And he said something to the effect of, I won't promote racism, and I got what he's saying, and I'm just saying, I get that, and I understand people who may feel that way about what I do. Like, for example, I don't even tell people what I do a lot of times, because a lot of times people automatically, it's just, and I'm talking about family members, not even fraternity brothers or just people you meet, but a lot of people have a negative stereotype or experience of what has happened to them with a law enforcement officer. So I usually like to let the people get to know me first, so that they can see, okay, hey, I don't wear this at home. When I'm off, I'm off. When I'm on. So I think that's one aspect. But then the other aspect is, it reminds me of, like, they said the same thing about black people. The Buffalo Soldiers, when they wanted to fight in the military, like, why you want to fight for a country that doesn't even see you as, as your own, as a whole person. But look at the steps they took and the ridicule they got from our people and from the like, right? But then look at where we are today. So I think, and what I'm saying is, I don't want to see these young brothers' lives to go in vain. And at the same time, I think the more we can teach our young people, hey, let's teach them how to deal with somebody, because you don't know where this officer's coming from, and if this officer is worried or concerned about his safety and sees you as a threat, if you don't do what you maybe need to do, and you upset, what I'm saying, it could be a bad day. Like, for example, I teach my boys. I have two boys. I have a 15-year-old and a 9-year-old. And I said, listen, and I tell them with everything. Hey, listen, what I need you to do is to keep your mouth closed and do whatever they tell you to do. That's even at school. And then call me or your mom, so that we can come deal with it. Because what I don't want, and that's what we're seeing, I don't want our young people to get in a place where they feel like they have to be judge and jury on the street with some officer who doesn't know who you are, doesn't share your experience, doesn't live in your community, not from the community where you're from. So I think what you're saying, you bring up a valid point, and it is tough, but the only way I can say it is just to keep pushing, keep encouraging, and keep striving to help our people to understand, hey, well, how else are we going to change it? Okay, so what I'm saying by that is, if you on the force, you know, and you're standing up, they got to recognize you, and they got to say, well, damn, I guess, you know, if they have that bias, you know, I guess all people, black or not, like, you know, I thought Ethel was one way or something. You don't know what's going on in their mind, and how people were raised, and what's on their mind. So all you can do is bring what you bring, and be the best that you can be, and then and try to change it from internal. You know what I'm saying? And that's the best we can do at that point. And like you said, to keep on, but and keeping letting these incidences gain momentum to that where it can be a change. Because this is the time to do it. If it dies down, it's going to go back, and there's just going to be other incidences, right? But if we keep saying, hey, we got to fight, we got to fight. Hey, we need more young people. We need more women. We need more, you know, Latinos, Asians. We need others in this job. You know what I'm saying? Instead of young white males who sometimes, some of them are fresh off mom's couch. And I think one of the other panelists said, you know, that with experience, right, or training, you know, like for example, most officers at Berkeley, majority of us have at least 60 college units. That's a requirement, right? But that's not the same in all other states. Some states you probably could be a cop at 18 or 21. I mean, what does a 21-year-old know about life experience, right? Most 21-year-olds, some of them are fresh off mom's couch or in mom's basement, right? And then here you are, you giving him a badge, a gun, and then now you telling him to, hey, manage and to control that scene, right? So that goes back to training. Then what? He's going to do it how he thinks he's supposed to do it. She's supposed to do it by what his FTO, his field training officer, shows him to do. So if that means you be disrespectful to your elders, then that's what you're going to do. You're going to tell everybody, shut up, because that's what you see somebody do, because you don't have no experience. You see what I'm saying? And so it goes back to, you know, trying to lessen, and what we have to do, like I said, educate our kids so that we don't be devalued and minimalized, you know what I mean, and marginalized, you know.
Hey, Omari, I wanted to ask you if you could talk about, I know you're not necessarily a coder, but you're in Silicon Valley, and I know, for instance, like here in Oakland, there's a big push now for like hacking and getting a lot of young black men, especially, to get into coding and hacking. And then, like I said, I showed that that website earlier called Racists Getting Fired. I mean, I don't condone that necessarily, but I'm just saying that's one smart way to go about addressing some of the racism, because, you know, as everybody's saying, you know, the federal government has established things that have put us back years, decades. The system isn't necessarily built for us to win. We all know this, but there's other ways now because of technology that we can be smart about, you know, reacting to some of this stuff. I don't know, Omari, I don't know if you can provide any more insight or if you have any more thoughts. Oh, unmute yourself.
Yeah, let me unmute the camera. Yeah, so I don't know, to piggyback a little bit on you know, what Ethel was saying. I think what it requires is that, you know, be it technology or you know, or law enforcement or, you know, entrepreneurship, whatever, you know, whatever your background happens to be, whatever walk of life you happen to come from, I believe that it takes each individual, you know, and especially us as Sigma men, we're supposed to, you know, we're supposed to be that light. You know, so it requires that each of us is you know, embodies the change that we want to see, you know, in the world. You know, I know it sounds a little bit cliche, but you know, that's what it requires. So if I, you know, speaking, you know, from someone from a technology background, if I want to see more people like myself, you know, when I go to the office, or you know, we're coming up through, you know, through schools and then into college and so on and so forth, and choosing these, you know, science, technology, you know, mathematics careers, it's going to require that, you know, that I, as an individual, go out, you know, and try to impart, you know, my knowledge to others. So if I think about, you know, my daughter, for example, you know, I need to do things like, carry her, let her see where daddy works, or to go into, to take her and inform her, to show her different types of things other than, quote unquote, being the princess and all of this type of stuff. I can expose her to things that I wasn't necessarily exposed to, as a kid. So whether that's coding or, building apps or what have you, those, teaching young people will lead us a lot further than than anything else, in my opinion. Again, I feel like if each one of us, imparts our knowledge and tries to better influence those kids within our immediate circle, or far and not far beyond, we can bring them along and put them in a situation to where they can create these new things from a technology standpoint. They can maybe they will become the next politician or judge or what have you within their own communities. Again, we need to be that change that we want to see.
Hey, Kelvin, I wanted you to see if you can talk a little bit more about your idea about starting an educational fund, especially because I know what you're saying is that money talks nowadays. We all know that. And, how do you do that? Is that even possible? Especially if, not all of us brothers may own businesses, or we may not all have the same types of jobs. Can you talk a little bit more about how do we do that? Because I like that idea.
Well, I think what we all need to do, first of all, is understand that it's going to take some self-sacrifice from all of us. At UCLA, we have, right now, we give out an average of about $300,000 a year from the UCLA Black Alumni Association. One of the programs that we have is a program we call our Thousands for Thousands program. The gist of the program is that we ask our members to all give up $83 a month. Okay, this money is put into a foundation account at $83 a month, which is basically $1,000 in a year's time. That year, we're talking about $83 a month. Of course, we know that that's less than most people's direct TV bill. That's less than a lot of people's coffee bills at Starbucks. So basically it's a decision that has to be made, because all these kids are our kids. And we got to understand that. And that basically we can't expect anyone else to do anything for us unless we're willing to put a little sacrifice there ourselves. Now, for our Thousands for Thousands program, the goal of it, of course, is to have 1,000 people give $1,000 a year. And, of course, that turns into $1 million a year that we can give scholarships to people. Because our goal there is to, pay for every African-American student to get admitted to UCLA. We want them to not have to come up with a dime for their money for the school. We want to be able to do it. Through our fraternity, over the years, because, I went over in 1981, so I've been around a long time. We've had giving clubs where brothers gave money whenever their fraternity house was in peril, which we all had to give to before. We have our dues. The dues are expensive, and a lot of brothers have problems paying them, and a lot of brothers don't. Some brothers are more gifted than others, or should I say more blessed than others. So if we just start a 1,000 for 1,000 club on the Phi Beta Sigma level, where brothers who, can't afford it can put an automatic draft that will go straight into a scholarship foundation account, whether it be $83 a month, whether it be $10 a month, whether it be $20 a month, whether it be $200 a month, depending on what a brother can handle. And by the way, of course, this is all tax deductible. But if we can build funds like that, and we can start giving scholarships, maybe, one of the things that I would like to see done is in Phi Beta Sigma is for us to give scholarships to our brothers. That way, get them educated. And then as we get more brothers, to make it where financially they can get paid for, we can move on to spreading it out to somewhere else. And as a people, if we can get that going where we know that we have to put this money up, then it's very possible for us to raise money. As the brother said earlier, we spend a lot of money out here. One thing we're definitely great consumers. You know, so we can do it, and brothers will do it. Like I said, 1,000 brothers and $1,000 a year is $1 million a year. That's something that can be done. It's not that difficult. It's not difficult as we make it seem.
Cool. Appreciate that. So because I wanted to value everybody's time, is getting close to 8. So Kyle, I'm gonna pass the mic to you. Could you just leave us with some last thoughts, and then we'll end this Google Hangout. I think it's been great so far.
I want to commend everyone on their input, because I think that we all have like ideas and how to help and aid. I would say that as more mature brothers of our fraternity and our communities and our own respective communities, be they our families or our neighborhoods, I encourage everyone to really start to learn social media. And I know this sounds very weird, but I say that because we've spoken a lot about how we can influence the next and upcoming generations. And those generations are being controlled to some extent by social media. If we can really learn as an older generation how to use and seriously use to our benefit social media and the internet and all of those tools that younger generations are living their lives on, I think that we can take our efforts from being grassroots and just the person that we can touch next to us and the kid that is growing up in our household and start to make a mass impact on the generation as a whole that's growing up across the nation. Because it's a powerful tool. And if businesses can use it to make millions of dollars, I know that we as Sigmas can make it to make life-changing efforts in across children and adult lives. Is that because we've said a lot about affecting kids, and I don't think that we should stop there. There are a lot of adults that we can affect as well.
Hey, I'm glad you brought up that point about social media, and just let everybody know who's watching and who will watch this later. We are doing a Google Hangout. We're using social media to spread this message, so that's a great way to end this. Again, thank you, brothers, for taking time out of your busy schedules to hang out with me, hang out with the brothers in Northern California. And I know we as a fraternity will continue to do great things. For those watching, this will be available on YouTube later. So go mob to everybody, and thank you again, brothers.
Go mob.
Go mob.